All right, welcome everyone who's attending. Thanks for being here today. If this is your first GSC travelogue, then welcome. Our presenter today is June Scott, who will be presenting on her trip to Patagonia. June is a lifelong learner and intrepid traveler who has been fortunate enough to visit 106 countries. As a traveler, not a tourist, June has an open mind to learn more about the fascinating people around the world, wherever they live, from Iran to Ethiopia. She believes, as we were discussing before, that travel broadens your perspective personally, culturally, and politically. And of course, following a trip, June loves to share the adventure with her friends. Before we get underway, if anyone has any questions, please put them at the Q&A box at the bottom, and we will go over them at the end. June, thank you again, and take it away whenever you're ready.
All right. Thank you very much. Hello to everybody out there. And I want to thank Judith Bach for inviting me to present and Joe Sullivan for his tech help and support. And I want to thank all of you out there who have presented programs which I've enjoyed joining you on, no matter where you go in the world. As I said, I try to be a lifelong learner. And so today, if you're looking for solitude and dramatic landscapes and challenging adventures, and it's a hiker's paradise, we're going to go to explore the Chilean Patagonia. And here again, this is going to be a little different in the sense that it's a very personal trip because it's with my family, so you will get to meet them. So let's get started. And this is to let you know that so there you go. This was a trip that was to take place in 2024, celebrating my 90th birthday. And due to COVID, we weren't able to do it. So it was postponed to 2023. And whenever I take a family vacation with my family, I look for a company that's been there whose expertise in it. And this particular company was started in 1981 by this young woman, Jo Sanders. And she, several decades ago, she had been traveling with all her young friends. And they said, you know what, Joe, you should start a company for adventure travel into unique places. So I had been with her and some friends in Ethiopia. So I was able to contact her and we planned the program. And there again, we're going to be in two exclusive lodges, inclusive lodges. So just to give you an idea, some people think of Patagonia maybe as nothingness like Siberian, the Sahara, but it's more than that. It has mountains and glaciers and geysers and lakes and salt flats, just beyond beauty. But I also have to show you where we're going because one of the first times I gave this program, a person in the audience said, Patagonia is a place to go. Where is it? I thought it was only a clothing store because my granddaughter asked for a gift certificate. So we are going to the Southern Hemisphere and where the seasons are reversed. It will be warmer, and then it will be always windy, but warm in the day and cool in the evenings. And to give you an idea exactly where it is, you can see that we have our, you know, Chile is a very long country, and it's bordered by Argentina. In fact, the bottom half of South America is Patagonia, both in Chile and Argentina. We're going to visit the Chile side. And of course, it's bordered on the South Pacific, on the west, and Argentina. And then on the east is the longest continental mountain range that goes all the way from Venezuela, from South America, all the way down to the Antarctic, over 5,500 miles. And did you notice that the length of Chile is over 2,600 miles? And in fact, if you laid it on its side, it would reach from San Francisco to Rhode Island. But let's get started. Besides being a personal trip, I want to give you some background. And Patagonia has been inhabited for, thousands of years. Some of the first people were these indigenous people, and some of their descendants are still present in Chile in the middle of, because their agriculture is their field of livelihood. And of course, Incas were there for a little while, and they're a very warlike tribe, and they were often taking other people's land. But they found that the climate was too harsh for them, so they moved on. And of course, I'm sure in your history lessons in high school, you had met Ferdinand Magellan, the first gentleman to circumvent the globe. But he came to Patagonia in 1520, and he was one of the first, Europeans there, and it encouraged other settlers to come. And they brought their sheep and started in the hopes of developing the sheep area. But to give you some background about some facts and figures, is 3 times the size of Italy, and remember how long it is. Spanish, the population, and because of its 2,600-mile length, there's 5 distinct graphic geographic regions. And of course, 1/3 is covered by the Andes Mountains. There's the northern part that we're going to, the very arid desert, then the Central Valley with the steppes, the Lake District in the south, and then, of course, the remote Easter Island out in the west in the Pacific. And my first trip to Patagonia, I went both to Easter Island, Chile, and Argentina in Iguazu Falls. But this one, we're going to concentrate on Chile. And of course, to bring it up to date, they've already had a woman president, Michelle, and the current one is Gabriel. And he was elected in 2022. And Chile's government is a represented democratic republic where the citizens elect the representatives to make decisions on their behalf, and the power of the government is limited by the Constitution. And it's interesting that Chile is one of the most stable economically and socially countries in South America. And one of the reasons is because of their exports. Copper is their main export, along with wood products, lots of seafood, fruits, and recently Chilean wines. I can't, speak for them, but other people say they are good. And of course, just a little history too. You probably remember the 2010 cave-in a copper mine where the men were stranded there for 2 months, 33 of them, but they did all survive. But to bring it up to current times, you who are Patagonia company shoppers would appreciate the story behind this company. This is the gentleman that founded it in 1973. And he was an adventurer, a businessman, an environmentalist, and he did a lot of climbing. And he was buying other people's equipment, and it was inadequate, he thought. So he decided to go and become a blacksmith and develop his own climbing gear. And then other people wanted it, and so gradually it became a equipment company, and then they added clothes. and they were always very environmentally conscious of their products and what they used and what they made it out of. But what's even more incredible was that in 2022, this gentleman and his family put the company in the trust, and all the profits from it were to be used. The goal of using all the profits to fight the environmental crisis and protect nature. In other words, save the planet, save this pristine environment. Here's a couple other two people very forward thinking. Doug Tompkins founded North Face Company in 1968. Here again, he was an outdoors man. He felt that it's important to get people outdoors. We need more people out in nature and national parks. So he started going to Patagonia and exploring that. And if here again, in his company, it was a camping company, and then it became a clothing store. So eventually, his wife, Chris, and he accumulated over 3.5 million acres. Just imagine that. And of course, they started going down there decades ago, buying more land to the point they were the largest landowners outside of the country. But then they decided to start working with the Chilean government and giving it back. So they gave all the acres they had bought and gave it back to them. And they actually created they actually created more than 5 national parks, and we will be visiting the Torres del Paine park that they created in a little bit. But we better get started. We have a long way to go. We're going to fly United. We're going to get to Santiago, the capital of Chile. And here again, this map gives you a good idea that the bottom half of South America is the Patagonia. And of course, you have the backbone of the Andes through here, all the way up here, all the way down. And reminding you, it's 2,600, miles long and only 112 wide. And of course, you have to a long way, 14 hours of flying, 12 to Santiago, two more to Antacanda. But we finally arrive, and this is what we are greeted with: a beautiful mountain range, right above our cabins and rooms, and we're at 7,600 feet. And of course, Anaconda is way in the north. It's very dry and arid, as you can see, but also beautiful, the campus. We visit the swimming pool. We take walks along the boardwalk. And then to introduce you to our luxurious accommodations, this is, as I say, an inclusive lodge, so we don't have to, pay for this, pay for that, and such. So this is the gathering area. This is the library. And this is the special bar that you can have a cup of tea, a glass of orange juice, hot cocoa, maybe even something stronger whenever you wanted during the day. And then at night, after an adventure, you would be able to enjoy the sunset, just reflect on your day, and even have a glass of wine. And then as you walk down the path to your room, you can look back at the lodge and think, oh, how lucky we are here to be in this beautiful, beautiful place. Now, I have to tell you, when you get to these inclusive lodges, they have these very talented guides and instructors who are there to help you plan your stay of 3 or 4 or 5 days. And if you have any goals, they want to know about them. And my son and grandson had the goal. They live on the West Coast, and they have been hiking and climbing all their lives. And they, have climbed Mount Rainier and the Ridge. And so they want to see if they can get up to the Cerro Tocado volcano at 18,000 feet. So they have to plan it, work their way up to the different altitudes. And of course, we can choose what we want. Do we want full day, half day? They know what the weather's going to be and they can advise us. Do we want an easier terrain? Do we want to take a boat? Do you want to take your walk? Do you want to take horseback? So there's a lot of variety. And to remind you, this is a group of, 3 generations, age limit, age span from 23 to 93. So this is our A team who can do 17 miles. Then there's our B team made up of my daughter-in-law, my son-in-law, my daughter can do 7, and then little old me who can do probably 3. But that doesn't stop us from doing it. And of course, I explained to my family I wanted them to all to do their own thing. And then we'd all gather at dinner. I didn't want to restrain them from, keeping up with me and such. So when they're off on theirs, I'm doing my thing. And here again, my first experience was to discover the lunar and landscape of Anaconda and all the wonderful different cactus out there. And you know what? People think it's, as I say, it might be like a safari or a Sahara or Siberia, but it's not, because there's so many features there. There's geysers, white salt flats, thermal baths, lagoons. So we're off to enjoy it. And you can see all these different kinds of environment, all the rocks, the grasses. And of course, it's so much like it's one of the harshest places on Earth, and so harsh that it does resemble Mars. So NASA has actually been testing their instruments and their machines down there, testing the soil. So for future Mars exploration. So you can see how dry and extreme it is. But while I'm busy doing that, our A group is off to the hot springs with some other people in the group. And of course, they are, this is a unique ecosystem where the desert meets Great Lakes of Anaconda and the salt marsh, and you can see that with all the grasses there. And then, of course, they arrive at one of the 8 thermal hot springs that are surrounded by grass and rocks. We all enjoy it. And then I had the wonderful experience of visiting the Anaconda Salt Flats. And you must realize this is the driest non-polar desert in the planet. And it receives less than 6/10 of rain a year. In fact, there could be years with no rain. And so at one time, this was a lagoon and there was water, but with the sun and the wind and the heat, it's evaporated, just leaving these beautiful salt crystals as far as the eye can see. And of course, we eventually hiked to the lagoon, and it's, like the Dead Sea, and you just float with no trouble. But walking back, we see the beauty is the and the extent of it from as far as the eye can see. And along the way, we are also looking for flamingos, because 50% of the flamingos in the world are in Chile. And of course, we find them, we feel very lucky. And then we start back. Now, I want you to hold your breath or take a breath and just look at this. As I'm walking back, looking out into the horizon and the clouds, I feel like I'm in a painting. And of course, my daughter-in-law and my granddaughter joined me on that expedition. And afterward, my granddaughter went horseback riding. As I say, you can go, feet, a boat, van, a horse. And of course, this team, our A team, wants to work their way up to the 18,000 feet. So they are going on a trip looking for geysers and hoping to get up to about 14,000 feet. But they're there again, they're hiking along the riverbank and looking for geysers. And it also looks very much like a Mars landscape. They're getting closer and closer. And did you realize there's at least 90 active volcanoes along there in the Andes? And you can see the steam becoming. And a geyser needs 2 things. It needs water, which could come from rivers, rainfall, melted snow, and it needs a plumbing system, which is the fissures that go down into the earth, over 16,000 feet down to the magma. So then the water seeps down there, it begins to boil, and then the pressure blows it out. Think of your pressure cooker. And so there again, they arrive at the geysers, and the river is actually boiling when it reaches the upper reaches like that. And then, of course, with the cold air in contrast with the heat, you get interesting photographs. But then on the way back, they leave the scenery behind. And as I say, wherever you travel, walk around and look 360 because there's views from all angles. And who should they meet on the way back but some guanacos, and which are the similar to the llamas. And here they are. You can see them in the grass and such. And I told you about the goal of our team, A team. And so they are, working on that goal. And the guide notices that my grandson in the white gym shoes has only gym shoes. And they feel that he should not hike in those, that he should buy a pair at their store so that they're real hiking boots. Well, if you're going to hike that kind of a hike, you're not going to want to have new boots. And so my son advocated for him. So they tested him and they decided, yes, he could do it. So the team is off and they're going to hike up to this very conical, volcano and just, enjoy the experience of one step at a time. And it's a dormant, as I say, volcano. And they take a few steps and it's very strenuous. It keeps going up and up. And there again, lack more, the oxygen is not there, one step at a time, but they continue looking back, how far we've come, and you can see what a cone that is. They keep going and they make it. And it's wonderful, the trio was so triumphant. And it's interesting when they got back, they were so happy, a bit tired. It was late afternoon, and I was waiting for them because I was just curious how they had done. And I'm in tears because I'm so excited that they had succeeded and enjoyed it. And I must say, after the first or second expedition, my grandson and granddaughter said, Grandma, we had great expectations, but this is way over the top. So I was happy to see they made their goals. But the rest of us are not idle at the same time. My daughter-in-law and I decided to go see some of the petroglyphs. And so we have to hike, and then we have to go down into a canyon where we do find the petroglyphs that are dated back 800 AD. Not some of the oldest, but you can see the llama being inscribed. And then if you listen closely, you can hear our guide telling us how once the nomads started staying in place, they could take their time and record their days and their experiences. And this is probably at the time of the llama caravans that were going across the country.
It takes a lot of energy and time. So imagine that when they already domesticate the animals, the time appears. Yeah, I mean, they have much more time than before. So when they have the time, change everything because
they can record. You can see their designs, their animals, and of course, we run into more cactus, and the cactus fruit, sort of like a sour kiwi. And of course, we have the insects that you can enjoy. And we're just about to finish our time down up at Anaconda. And we are treated to the incredible, authentic barbecue. Notice all the different choices we have. Not one meat, not two, maybe three or four, right off the, animal itself. And everybody can fill in as much as they eat, as much as they want. And we're also treated to the local musicians. Notice their made out of wood. And of course, not only the musicians, but the dancers. Notice that it would be her outfit dancing in the field. And of course, now we have to go to the other end of Chile. And as we arrive at the airport, I happen to notice an Antarctic Airways. And being the penguin lady, I also admire the ship that looks like a penguin. We aren't going on that trip, but we are flying down from Ataconda all the way down to Santiago, Chile, to the capital so that we can visit there. It's a beautiful city, and 40% of the Chile's population is there, and a lot of old buildings and such. But we enjoyed a Chilean museum of pre-Columbian art. Excuse me. And it was incredible to detail each of these figures. And we found out that they are used and have been used to put on the tombs for the indigenous people and enabling them and assist them to their next part of life. And as we arrive, we're driving toward it. And as I said, this is where we're going is the only lodge that's within the park. So we're driving along the lake and this freshwater lake that's turquoise blue. It is, as I said, the wind is always with you. And of course, the water is so fresh, you could fill your water bottle. And then we are so excited when we get our first glance of the iconic granite peak shaped by the glacier ice. The domes dominate the landscape. This is, the Torres del Paine National Park, one of the most famous of the 24, and it was established in 1959 and became a part of UNESCO in 1978 because it was the eighth wonder of the world and culturally important. And of course, Paine means blue, reflecting all the blues in the lakes and sort of the blue in the towers. And here is our a destination and where we're going to lay our heads for the next, 4 or 5 days. And it sort of looks like a ship. And my older daughter was just so excited. This is the place she wanted to stay because it was the only only lodge within the park, whereas the other ones were all outside, and you would have to travel several hours to get back. And no matter where you were in the lodge, no matter what time of day, you could look out and see an amazing, spectacular view by the lake, by the falls, at night, morning, early morning for a walk on all the boardwalks that protect all the plants and life underneath. And of course, this is our home for the next few days. Rooms are up the stairs. Here's a way to relax and read. And then, of course, the dining room served us wonderful meals 3 times a day. And as I say, we'd meet for dinner. And I was that night having a guanaco steak, which was wonderful. And of course, being inclusive, my grandson could have 3 entrees, somebody could have 2 glasses of wine, and I could have 2 or 3 desserts. But there again, just take time and look at the views no matter where you are. This was out of my bedroom. My goodness, how lucky I am. And there, of course, this is a different time of day. One day we thought after our expedition that we would go down to the pool. And sure enough, we got to the pool, many steps down there, and then we had enjoyed the hot tub. Now, it's not every day that you have mountains and hills and clouds in the back when you do. And as when we arrived in Ataconda, now we have to plan our time down here. What are your goals? What are you expecting to do? What do you want? Do you want, daily opportunities? 15, full day, half day, hike, van, boat, horseback, easy, strenuous. And then, of course, it depends on the weather. They'd say, we want to do this. We can't do it this morning, but you can do it this afternoon. And so they would guide us through and help us decide. And one of the first adventures we all wanted to do was to visit the glaciers. So we through the caves to get to the boat. It's nice to the glacier. Can you imagine walking in that? We finally do get there and aboard the boat. And interesting that some of these glaciers you can get very close to it. And of course, everybody's getting their camera ready because here we go. Did you see all the caving? You know, it keep breaking off. And I have to explain to you, the blue ice it's blue because of the pressure, the compacting of the ice and snow, for hundreds and hundreds of years. And this particular gray glacier is, 1,800 feet deep, 17 miles long, 4 miles wide. And, we can get pretty close, and there are the views. Everybody's got their camera out as far as I can see. And it's interesting, other glaciers in this area and around the world, because of the climate change in the last couple of decades, they are beginning to break off and retreat some. I went for a picture on the internet showing how it is retreating and such. But in spite of that, we are enjoying it. And then when we're back online, we have some more exploring to do. Of course, we're going up to a lake that's named after the explorer. And as you're walking with your fellow hikers, we, with our guides explaining why and how it got. And of course, the lake we're going to go has been formed by the melting glaciers. And you can see them coming down as they melt into the cascades and the water along the river. And of course, did you notice the three towers are always in the background? So here. And of course, as I say, it was always very windy. And as the younger members of our group, probably have walked all the way. I would have taken the van halfway and met them at the last half. And of course, notice how windy it is. Luckily, she's laughing.
Yeah, it's on video. Are you good?
My son was taking that and he was worried for it. But, the winds can get up to 40 miles an hour. And here again, our A team walked it all the way up. And notice my grandson, no matter what the temperature, he's always in his shorts. And of course they did, the 3 towers and the 3 team A. Now, as we go back, we're going to just enjoy the beautiful weather and the beautiful scenery and the turquoise lakes. It's the algae on the bottom and melting the glaciers. Of course, as I say, I walked halfway, or got the van ride and then walked the rest. On one view is better than the other. And then, of course, a group's going to take another hike and see some more petroglyphs of another indigenous tribe. And as they're hiking up, as I mentioned before, always look around 24 because there's always a view. And as you get closer and closer, we finally get to them, and they're probably 4,000 years old. And they have, animals, fingerprints, and, there again, they're more, the nomads are more, stable and staying in one place. But as we return, we're going to, explore the Patagonia steppes of southern Chile. And the steppes are vast, open, semi-arid area region of it in the southern part of the continent. And of course, there is one of their, wildlife, the guanaco is always present. And of course, here's looking at you. And here they are off again. We got pretty close to them, as you'll see in a minute. And there again, they are related to the llama. They're like a domesticated llama. They're pretty graceful as they go along. You can see how close one of the hikers is. He's saying, looking at you. Well, near the end of our stay, the group decided that maybe it's time that we should all do one hike together. And of course, they adapted to Grandma. And this is young Flo, a very energetic, knowledgeable guide. And she knew the family by that time and what we were up to and our abilities. And so she decided we would hike up to a lake. And of course, along the way, we hike and she's brought a snack. We will sit down and have tea. But there again, we're walking up in a climb up to look back at the lake. And then we encounter some of the other local wildlife, the goats and the puma. And of course, we finally arrive at the conservation reserve. And it used to be a large sheep ranging, use in the past when they, when all the earlier Europeans came and raised sheep, and they still do. And of course, now it's horses, and they've converted the old sheep shearing shed into a lovely spot for lunch while you visit. And of course, after, setting for dinner or lunch, and we get a tour of the new barn for all the horses. And then if you're going to go horseback riding, you have to get ready and put your shafts on. And of course, I expected to go horseback riding, but Flo, as I say, knew our family. She says, June, it's your age, with osteoporosis, I don't think you should do that. So they at least got me on the horse to give me a feel. I was disappointed not to go, but, I wasn't going to change. I didn't want to change my lifestyle by falling off. So here they are, ready to go. And so
Bye, have fun.
and of course, there again,
Certainly, I'll be in good hands.
of course,
I won't.
some were very relaxed, others of them were a little more tense taking off. And it's interesting, along the way, they did encounter some puma, so they had to change course before they came back. But they came back ready to have lunch, and this is what they encountered. And then our last activity was something that I felt was very, very lovely. My son and his wife, my daughter-in-law, decided they would like to renew their vows for their 25th wedding anniversary. And so we had made arrangements for the platoon, and we're going to, sail to the waterfall. And of course, it's the only day there was a little rain, as you can say, with the rainbow, but we weren't discouraged. We decided we would go ahead anyway. And what's a little rain when you're giving you're doing your beautiful vows, start dancing, and then having champagne at 10 in the morning to to enjoy and honor that occasion. And not to close on a sad note, but I want to bring back to reality in the sense that, fires are not allowed. But with more and more people visiting Patagonia, about 300,000 a year, they've had some really bad fires. In 2005, a backpacker accidentally knocked over a gas stove, you know, impacting 42,000 acres. And then another one, you know, lit a piece of toilet paper and created 43,000, depleting the environment, which is not good. And here again, this is what happens. And these trees are trees that are, you know, centuries old, and they take centuries to rebound and come back. Now that's a beautiful scene, but it's, you know, it's a silhouette of the regular trees and such. So we are off looking back at a wonderful 2 weeks of extraordinary experiences, of spectacular scenes, and just thinking, oh my gosh, what a wonderful time we had. And when you think about it, Patagonia is a place to idle, to be thoughtful, to daydream, to walk and wonder. And even as we leave, we are greeted with snow and frosting. And then, of course, our last view of the, you know, the three towers reminds us of all the beauty we've seen and the adventures we've had. And then again, what beautiful lodges we stayed in. So I, you know, entreat you to go there if you haven't, if you're curious. It's a wonderful place to explore and keep traveling, because I agree with Mark Twain that, you know, to prevent prejudice, you can travel. And it's more than the journey, it's a new way of looking at people and places. So thank you very much. If I can be of any, answer any questions, I'd be happy to. And thank you again for joining me going to Patagonia.
Thank you, June. That was a great presentation. Very nice pictures, and everything was very cool to learn about. We did receive a few questions. The first one was there ever any danger in the hiking that you guys did?
No, no, we never encountered anything, you know, the guanacos were safe. The puma were at a distance, so we were, you know, quite
Yeah,
safe. Never had to run or be fearful.
got it. And then another one was this a private tour with you, with only your family? I think that was referring to the last bit you did on the
We,
boat. Was that? Yeah.
you know, we were the only, our group, our family I went with, as I say, expeditions. We were a family group by ourselves with that company. But once when we got to the lodges, we would hike with other people that were at the lodges. And also when we were on the boat to the Great Glacier, there were other people on the boat. But, when we were, as a family, we were by ourselves. But we then, traveled and did hikes with other people, which was fun too, to
Yeah.
get to know them.
Yeah, getting to meet people while traveling, it's always a fun time.
Yeah.
Um, this one is actually for me. Was it how was it communicating with the people there, like the locals? Was there any difficulty or
No, 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 no. Of course, our guides, though they were local, spoke
mhm,
wonderful English. And, we were, as I say, at these lodges. So we were not sort of off campus. So we weren't, going into small towns, except in, when we were in Santiago, we were in the city. So
mhm.
it's different than, if we were in Morocco or Ethiopia, where you're visiting the tribes and, eating with the people and such. So different kind.
Got it. Well, I think that was all the questions we had. So, thank you again, June, for presenting, and thank you everyone for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you at the next one in May. Thank you again, and have a great day.